He came begging for milk for his child. She fed the baby herself, became the mother the child needed. Part 1. The red sky over Dust Valley looked like it was always holding its breath. On the frontier planet called Kestrel 9, mornings came with thin light and cold wind. The land was wide and quiet. Dust moved across the plains like slow smoke. People here lived far from big cities and far from help. They survived because they worked hard, kept promises, and watched the horizon. Elara Vance lived on the edge of the valley, where the settlement ended and open land began. Her ranch was small but steady, 2 water tanks, a solar fence, a barn built from old ship panels, and a field that grew hardy grain. A few biocows grazed near a rocky ridge, their tags blinking softly. A repair drone buzzed along the fence line, checking for brakes. Elara was not old, but her face carried the kind of calm that came from facing many hard seasons. She kept her dark hair tied back, wore a long coat against the dust, and carried a tool belt like it was part of her body. Folks in town said she was quiet kind. She did not talk too much, but when someone needed help, she showed up. That morning, Elara woke before sunrise and walked out to check the water filter. The wind was strong and the air smelled like iron. A storm was coming. She could feel it in her bones. She tightened a bolt, wiped her hands, and looked toward the far road that cut through the valley. It was more of a track than a road, ruts in the dirt where wagons and hover sleds had passed. Nothing moved. Then a faint sound reached her, not a car engine, not a drone, hooves. She narrowed her eyes. A rider appeared in the distance, coming slowly like he was pushing through invisible weight. The horse was not a real one. It was a mechanical mount, old model, patched in many places, its metal legs kicking up dust. Its head sensor flickered as if it was tired. The rider sat stiff, one hand holding the reins, the other pressed close to his chest. At first, Elara thought he might be injured. Then she saw what he was holding, a baby. The child was wrapped in a worn blanket. Tiny arms and legs shifted, and the small face turned toward the wind. Even from far away, Elara could hear the weak crying, thin and hungry. The rider reached the first houses of the settlement, stopping at a home near the water pump. He leaned down and spoke to someone at the door. Elara couldn't hear the words, but she saw the answer in the body language. The door closed. He tried another house, then another. Each time the result was the same, shaking heads, doors closing, backs turning. Elara's mouth went tight. She understood fear. Supplies were low, winters were cruel on Kestrel 9, and strangers brought trouble. But a baby was a baby. The rider turned from the last house and kept going, straight toward Elara's ranch. Elara stepped down from her porch, boots sinking slightly into the soft dust. She didn't raise a weapon. She didn't call for help. She simply waited in the open where he could see her hands. The mechanical horse slowed near her gate. Its legs hissed. The rider's shoulders sagged as if he had been holding himself up by will alone. He dismounted carefully, almost stumbling. He was tall and lean, wearing a cowboy coat with stitched repairs. His hat was pulled low and dust covered everything. His face looked young but worn, and his eyes were sharp in a tired way, like someone who slept with one ear open. The baby cried louder when the wind hit. "Ma'am," the man said. His voice was rough and dry. I'm sorry to bother you." Elara kept her tone steady. "What do you need?" His jaw worked as if he was choosing the safest words. "Milk, anything. The child hasn't eaten right in hours." Elara's gaze went to the baby. The child's cheeks were pale, lips cracked from dry air. The cry was not strong anymore. It had the weak sound of a small body running out of fuel. "Come inside," Elara said. The man blinked like he hadn't expected kindness to be real. "I can pay." "Elara," she said, giving her name like a simple fact. "And no, come inside before the storm gets here." He hesitated one more second, then followed. Inside Elara's home, the air was warmer. A small heater hummed near the wall. Shelves held tools and jars of dried food. A single lamp lit the kitchen table. Elara moved fast. She washed her hands, checked her emergency supplies, and pulled out a sealed pack of powdered formula. She didn't have much, but she had some, kept for travelers, kept for just in case. She warmed water on the stove and mixed the formula carefully. The man stood near the door, still holding the baby. He looked like he was afraid to step too far inside, like kindness might turn into a trap. Elara nodded toward a chair. "Sit." He sat slowly, keeping his boots closed together. The mechanical horse outside gave a quiet clank as it settled. Elara brought the bottle and held out her hand. "Let me." His arms tightened. "I can." "You're shaking," she said gently. "Hand her to me." He swallowed hard, then carefully placed the baby into Alara's arms. The baby's cries slowed for a moment, as if feeling warmth and safety. Alara supported the small head and brought the bottle to the child's mouth. At first, the baby fussed. Then instinct took over. She latched onto the bottle and began to drink. The sound was small but powerful, life returning. Alara's chest tightened. She didn't show it on her face, but inside, something old and quiet stirred awake. She had not held a baby like this in years, not since before the valley took what it took from her. The man watched Alara and the baby with a strange mix of relief and pain, like he was grateful but also ashamed that he couldn't fix everything alone. "What's her name?" Alara asked. The man's mouth opened, then closed. He looked down at his hands. I don't know." Alara's eyes lifted. "You don't know?" He shook his head once. "I'm not her father, I'm just the one who got her out." Alara kept feeding the baby, but her attention sharpened. "Out of where?" His gaze flicked to the window to the dust sky. "A caravan, outer route. Pirates hit it 3 nights ago." His voice dropped. "The mother, she didn't make it." Alara did not press him for details. She had heard enough stories to know how that ended. She simply nodded once like she was honoring the truth. "And you?" Alara asked. "Who are you?" He hesitated. "Rowan Hale." "Where are you headed, Rowan Hale?" His face tightened. "Anywhere safe." Alara studied him. He wasn't lying. Fear sat on him like a second coat, and it wasn't just fear of the land, it was fear of someone following. The baby finished half the bottle and slowed, eyelids heavy. Alara burped her gently, holding her upright. Rowan spoke quietly. "I tried the town first. They turned me away." "They're scared," Alara said. "But fear doesn't feed a baby." Rowan gave a small bitter laugh, then stopped, as if even laughing cost too much energy. He looked up. "Why did you help?" Alara shrugged. "Because you asked for milk for a child, not money for yourself." Rowan's eyes lowered again. "I didn't come here to cause trouble." Alara's voice stayed calm. "Trouble doesn't ask permission." Outside, wind struck the side of the house. Dust rattled against the windows. The storm was getting closer. Alara stood and walked to her cupboard. She pulled out a clean cloth, then a small blanket she had kept folded for years. It was simple, soft, and warm. She returned to the table and wrapped the baby more snugly. Rowan watched her hands. "You've done this before." Alara paused only a second. "Long time ago." The baby made a tiny sound, almost like a sigh, and rested against Alara's chest. Her eyes opened briefly, meeting Alara's face. Alara felt her throat tighten. She looked away and focused on practical things. "She needs a name," Alara said. Rowan's shoulders slumped. "I'm not good at names." Alara looked at the small pendant around the baby's neck. It was a thin metal piece shaped like a star, with faint lights pulsing under the surface. Not just decoration, it was tech. Alara leaned closer, careful. "Where did this come from?" Rowan's jaw clenched. "It was on her when I found her." Alara touched it lightly. The pendant warmed under her fingers like it recognized contact. A soft flicker ran through it, almost like a heartbeat. Rowan noticed and stiffened. "Don't." Alara pulled her hand back, not wanting to scare him. "It's active." Rowan exhaled. "Yeah, that's part of the problem." Alara did not ask more yet. She could see in his face that the truth was heavy and he was barely holding himself together. Instead, she said, "Storm will trap you here tonight. You can stay. There's a spare room." Rowan's eyes widened. "I can sleep in the barn. I don't need." "You need sleep," Alara said, "and she needs warmth." Rowan looked down at the baby again. The child was calm now, breathing soft and steady. His voice came out low. "I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to keep her alive." Alara sat across from him, still holding the baby. "You're doing it right now. You kept her with you. You asked for help." "That's not nothing." Rowan's face changed slightly, like her words cracked a wall inside him. Then a sharp sound came from outside. A faint buzzing, not like Alara's ranch drone. Rowan's head snapped toward the window. His hand moved toward his belt where a holster sat under his coat. Alara didn't move fast. She moved smart. She stood, holding the baby close, and stepped toward the side wall where her comm panel was mounted. "Is that your drone?" she asked quietly. Rowan's voice was tight. "No." The buzzing grew louder, passing over the roof, scanning. Alara's eyes narrowed. "How many are there?" Rowan swallowed. "I've seen 2, could be more." Alara pressed a button on the panel, her fence system activated to full strength. The solar battery hummed, feeding power into the perimeter. Outside, the fence poles lit with a low blue glow. The baby stirred and made a small, unhappy noise. Alara rocked her gently. It's all right, you're safe. Rowan stared at Alara as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. You're helping me fight? Alara met his eyes, steady as stone. I'm helping the child. The buzzing paused above the house, like an insect deciding where to land. Then from far off in the dust, a tiny red light blinked, watching. Alara's grip tightened slightly around the baby, not in fear, but in a promise. On Kestrel 9, storms weren't the only thing that hunted the weak, and Alara Vance had just chosen a side. Part 2. The storm arrived before sunrise. Wind pushed against Alara's ranch like a living thing, rattling the metal walls and throwing red dust against the windows. Outside, the sky disappeared behind swirling clouds. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. The valley became quiet except for the deep sound of moving air. Inside the house, warmth and soft light created a small world separate from the chaos outside. Alara sat near the heater, holding the baby close. The child slept peacefully now, wrapped in the blanket Alara had given her. Tiny breaths moved the blanket up and down. Every few minutes, Alara checked her temperature with gentle fingers, making sure she stayed warm. Rowan stood by the window, watching the storm through a narrow gap. His hand rested near his holster, but he did not draw the weapon. He looked tired, more tired now that he was finally safe enough to feel it. They won't come through the storm, Alara said quietly. Rowan nodded but did not turn away from the window. Maybe not, but they'll wait. Alara understood. Whoever followed him was patient. She shifted the baby carefully and stood. You should rest. Rowan shook his head. I'll stay up. You've stayed up too long already, Alara said. Exhaustion makes mistakes. He looked at her then, really looked. She wasn't ordering him, she was stating truth. After a moment, he exhaled slowly. Just a little while, he said. Alara gave a small nod and moved to the kitchen. She prepared a simple meal, warm broth and bread. The smell filled the room, mixing with the soft hum of machines. Rowan's stomach growled loudly, surprising both of them. Alara placed the bowl in front of him without comment. He hesitated. Thank you. He ate slowly at first, then faster when his body realized food was real. Alara watched quietly, rocking the baby with steady movements. After a while, Rowan spoke. You didn't ask more about them. Alara raised one eyebrow. You want me to? He paused, unsure. Then he sat back and stared into the bowl as if the answer might be there. They're not just hunters, he said finally. They work for a corporation, big one. They track things that make money. Alara glanced at the pendant around the baby's neck. And she makes money. Rowan swallowed. Not money, power. He leaned forward, lowering his voice even though no one else was inside. That pendant tracks her genetic signal. She's different. That's what they said. Alara listened without interrupting. They think she can survive environments that kill other people, Rowan continued. Maybe help terraform dead planets. I don't know all the science. I just know they don't see her as a child. They see a tool. Alara's jaw tightened. She looked down at the sleeping baby. No child should be treated like equipment, she said softly. Rowan nodded, relief flashing across his face at her words. The storm grew stronger outside. Dust hit the walls like rain. After eating, Rowan's eyes began to close without permission. His body leaned forward slightly, heavy with fatigue. Alara stood. Go to the spare room. He hesitated again. What about? I'll watch her, Alara said. Rowan looked at the baby, then at Alara. Something shifted in his expression, trust, slow but real. He stood and walked toward the hallway. Before disappearing, he paused. I didn't tell you, he said quietly. The mother called her Nova before she died. Alara repeated the name softly. Nova. Rowan nodded once and disappeared into the room. Silence returned. Alara looked down at Nova and smiled faintly. Hello, little star, she whispered. The baby made a small sound as if responding. Hours passed. Alara fed Nova again when she woke, holding her gently and humming an old frontier song her own mother used to sing. The melody filled the small house, soft and warm. Outside, the storm slowly lost strength. When Rowan finally returned, his hair was messy and his movements slower but steadier. He looked surprised when he saw Nova calm and alert in Alara's arms. She likes you, he said. Alara shrugged lightly. She likes warmth. Rowan stepped closer. Nova reached out with tiny fingers, touching the air near him. He smiled for the first time, a small, careful smile that looked unfamiliar on his face. She didn't sleep this well before, he admitted. Babies feel energy, Alara said. They know when they're safe. Rowan's expression turned thoughtful. Later, as the day continued, they worked together around the ranch. Rowan repaired a broken panel while Alara checked supplies. Nova rested in a small carrier attached to Alara's chest. Every time the baby made a sound, Alara responded instantly, adjusting the blanket or gently rocking. Rowan noticed everything. He noticed how natural her movements were. How she talked softly to Nova even when the baby didn't understand words. How the house felt different, less empty. At midday, a low hum echoed through the valley. Rowan froze. Alara looked toward the sky. A small drone moved through the air, scanning slowly. It stayed high above, barely visible through the thinning storm clouds. Rowan's hand tightened into a fist. They found us. Alara remained calm. Or they're searching the whole valley. The drone passed overhead, then disappeared toward the hills. Both of them stayed still for a long moment. We can leave tonight, Rowan said suddenly, before they come closer. Alara looked at him. And go where? Anywhere but here. Alara shook her head gently. Running forever isn't a plan. It kept her alive, Rowan said quietly. Alara did not argue. She simply said, sometimes safety means standing instead of running. Rowan didn't answer. That evening, Nova became restless. She cried harder than before, her small face red with discomfort. Rowan tried to calm her but struggled, growing more anxious with every passing minute. Alara stepped forward. May I? He handed Nova over quickly, relief clear in his eyes. Alara adjusted her position, holding Nova against her chest. She spoke softly, her voice steady and warm. Slowly, the crying faded. Rowan watched in silence. You make it look easy, he said finally. It isn't easy, Alara replied. It's patience. Nova fell asleep again, her tiny hand gripping Alara's shirt. Rowan sat heavily in a chair. I was never meant to be a father. Alara sat across from him. Maybe, but life doesn't always ask permission. He laughed softly at that, then grew serious. What about you? Why help us this much? Alara looked down at Nova before answering. Because once someone helped me when I had nothing left. She didn't say more, she didn't need to. Outside, the storm finally cleared. Stars appeared slowly in the dark sky, bright and endless. But far beyond the hills, a small red light blinked again, watching, waiting. Inside the ranch, Nova slept peacefully between two people who had not planned to become a family. And without speaking it aloud, something had already begun to change. Morning arrived quietly after the storm. The sky over Dust Valley turned clear blue, and sunlight stretched across the red land like a promise. The wind was softer now, carrying only small waves of dust instead of heavy clouds. From the porch of her ranch house, Alara watched the horizon carefully. Peaceful mornings could be dangerous. They made people believe everything was safe. Behind her, Rowan stepped outside carrying 2 metal cups filled with warm tea. He handed one to her without speaking. The simple gesture felt natural now, like they had done it many times before. Nova slept inside, wrapped safely in a soft carrier near the heater. They'll come today, Rowan said quietly. Alara nodded. She had been thinking the same thing. The drone that passed yesterday was not random. It was searching, tracking, waiting. What do they want exactly? She asked. Rowan leaned against the porch railing. They want control. If they own Nova, they own her future, and whatever she becomes. Alara watched a group of bio-cows moving slowly near the fence. Life on the ranch continued like normal, but tension hung in the air like a shadow. You said she's different, Alara said. How different? Rowan hesitated before answering. When I found her, the caravan scientists were protecting her. They said her body adapts faster than normal humans, resistant to extreme climates. Maybe more. I didn't understand everything, but I understood fear when I saw it. Fear of what? Alara asked. That someone would take her and turn her into a project instead of letting her grow like a child. Alara's jaw tightened. She had seen people turned into tools before. On frontier worlds, survival sometimes erased kindness. Inside the house, Nova made a small sound. Both of them turned immediately. Alara walked inside and picked her up gently. Nova blinked sleepily, then smiled when she saw Alara's face. That small expression filled the room with warmth. Rowan followed, watching closely. She trusts you, he said softly. Alara adjusted the blanket around Nova. Trust grows when someone stays. Rowan looked away slightly, as if those words carried weight. The morning passed with quiet work. Rowan repaired damage from the storm while Alara prepared supplies and checked the ranch systems. Nova stayed close to Alara most of the time, calm and curious, watching the world with wide eyes. Around midday, the peace broke. A distant rumble echoed across the valley. Rowan froze instantly. Alara stepped outside, shielding her eyes from the sunlight. On the far horizon, 3 hover vehicles moved slowly toward the settlement, leaving thin trails of dust behind them. "They found us," Rowan said. Alara's voice stayed steady. "Then we decide how to respond." Rowan shook his head. "You shouldn't be involved in this." Alara turned to him calmly. "Too late." Nova made a small sound as if sensing tension. Alara held her closer. "What's your plan?" Alara asked. Rowan hesitated. "Leave before they reach the town. Lead them away from you." Alara studied him carefully. She understood his thinking. He wanted to protect her by removing himself, but she also saw something else: exhaustion from running. "Running again won't end this," she said gently. "It kept her alive so far," Rowan replied. "Yes," Alara agreed, "but now she has a home. Running means losing that." Rowan's face tightened. He didn't answer. The hover vehicles grew closer. Alara moved quickly. She activated the ranch's defensive systems, not weapons, but shields and signal blockers designed to confuse scanning equipment. Old frontier technology, simple but effective. Rowan watched her with surprise. "You're prepared." "I live alone," she said. "Preparation is survival." A comm signal crackled suddenly through Rowan's wrist device. He stared at it, hesitating before accepting the call. A cold voice filled the air. "Rowan Hale. We know you are in Dust Valley. Return the child and no one gets hurt." Rowan's jaw tightened. "She's not yours." "She belongs to the corporation under legal claim," the voice replied calmly. "You are interfering with authorized recovery." Alara stepped closer, listening. "She belongs to herself," Rowan said. Silence followed for a moment. Then the voice returned, colder. "You are outnumbered. Cooperation is the logical choice." Rowan ended the transmission without answering. Alara looked at him. "Logical isn't always right." He gave a small, tired smile. "You remind me of someone." "Someone good?" she asked. "Yes," he said softly. The hover vehicles stopped just outside the settlement boundary. They did not rush forward. Instead, 2 drones lifted into the sky and began scanning slowly. Rowan's body went tense. "We need to move." Alara nodded. They packed quickly: food, water, tools. Alara secured Nova against her chest while Rowan prepared 2 hover mounts stored in the barn. "Where are we going?" Rowan asked. Alara pointed toward distant rocky cliffs. "Old mining station, shielded from scans." Rowan hesitated only a second before nodding. They left the ranch quietly, moving through narrow paths between hills to avoid open ground. The sun felt hotter now, and dust rose behind them with every movement. Nova remained calm, occasionally looking around with curious eyes. Halfway to the cliffs, a drone appeared above them. Rowan cursed under his breath. "They locked onto us." He pushed the hover mount faster. Alara followed closely, holding Nova securely. The drone lowered, scanning. Rowan turned suddenly and fired a pulse shot from his weapon. The drone spun out of control and crashed into the rocks. But the action revealed their position. Far behind them, the hover vehicles accelerated. "They're coming," Rowan said. They reached the old mining station just as the first vehicle appeared over the ridge. The building stood half buried in dust, metal walls scarred by time. Inside, shadows and silence waited. Alara moved quickly, activating old power systems she remembered from years ago. Lights flickered on. A shield generator hummed weakly but alive. Rowan sealed the entrance. Nova began to cry softly, reacting to the sudden tension. Alara held her close, whispering gently until the crying faded. Rowan leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. "I didn't want you dragged into this." Alara met his eyes calmly. "You didn't drag me, I chose." He looked down at Nova and then back at Alara. "I thought saving her meant running forever," he said quietly, "but maybe saving her means letting someone else help." Alara smiled slightly. "Families are stronger together." Outside, footsteps approached. The hunters had arrived. Inside the old station, Rowan and Alara prepared themselves not just to run, but to protect. And for the first time since he found Nova, Rowan felt something stronger than fear. Hope. The old mining station felt like it was holding its breath. Dust lay thick across the floor, and faint lights flickered along the metal walls as the weak power system struggled to stay alive. Outside, shadows moved across the cracked windows. The hunters had arrived. Alara stood near the center of the room, Nova held gently against her chest. The baby sensed the tension and made small, restless sounds, but Alara kept her voice calm and steady, whispering soft words that carried warmth. Rowan checked the entrance again, reinforcing the door with heavy equipment found inside the station. His movements were quick but controlled. He was no longer running blindly. Now he was thinking, planning. "They'll try to talk first," Rowan said quietly. "They always do." Alara nodded, "because they believe they already won." Rowan gave a faint smile. "You understand them." "I understand people who think power gives them the right to take," she replied. A sharp sound echoed through the station, a signal tone. Then a voice filled the air through an external speaker. "Rowan Hale, we know you are inside. Return the child. There is no need for conflict." The voice was calm and polite, but it felt cold. Rowan stepped closer to the wall panel, activating the internal comm. "She is not yours," he said firmly. A pause followed. "You are mistaken," the voice replied. "The child belongs to our research division. You removed her without authorization. Return her and you will not face consequences." Alara watched Rowan carefully. She could see the old fear trying to rise inside him. She stepped beside him, placing a steady hand on his arm. He straightened slightly. "She belongs to herself," Rowan repeated. Silence followed, longer this time. Then the voice returned, sharper. "You are protecting something you do not understand. That child represents a future that could save thousands of worlds." Alara stepped closer to the comm panel. "And you think saving worlds means stealing a child?" she asked calmly. Another pause. "You are interfering in matters beyond your understanding," the voice said. Alara's expression did not change. "No, I understand enough. She is not a tool." Outside, footsteps moved closer. Shadows crossed the windows again. Rowan turned away from the panel. "They'll try to break in soon," Alara nodded. "Then we make them think twice." They moved quickly. Rowan set up small defensive traps using mining tools and old equipment, nothing lethal, only enough to slow and confuse. Alara checked the shield generator, adjusting settings to strengthen its output for a short time. Nova watched everything with wide, curious eyes. The first attempt came quickly. A loud impact hit the outer door, followed by another. Metal groaned but held. The shield flickered but remained active. Rowan stayed calm, counting seconds between strikes. "They're testing." Alara sat down with Nova, rocking gently. She refused to let fear control the room. Another impact came, stronger this time. Dust fell from the ceiling. Rowan took a deep breath. "We can't hold forever." Alara looked at him. "Then we don't hold forever, we change the game." He blinked. "What do you mean?" "They expect us to hide," she said. "So we step forward." Before Rowan could respond, Alara activated the external comm again. "We are willing to talk face to face," she said. Rowan stared at her, surprised. Outside, movement paused. A moment later, the voice replied. "Step outside unarmed." Alara shook her head slightly and pressed another button. "You come to the entrance alone, no weapons raised." Silence. Rowan leaned closer. "You trust them?" "No," Alara said calmly, "but I trust preparation." After a long minute, the outer footsteps changed. One person approached the entrance slowly. Rowan and Alara exchanged a glance. Rowan opened the inner lock but kept the outer shield active. The door slid open slightly, revealing a woman in a gray uniform. Her face was calm, almost emotionless. "I am Commander Vale," she said. "We are here for the child." Alara stood tall. "And we are here to protect her." Commander Vale studied Nova for a moment, then looked back at Alara. "You cannot provide what she needs," Vale said. "Training, protection, a future." Alara's voice remained soft but firm. "She needs love before training, safety before purpose." Vale's expression did not change. "Emotion clouds judgment," Rowan stepped forward, "and lack of emotion creates monsters." The air grew heavy. Commander Vale sighed quietly. "You misunderstand us. We are not villains. We are trying to save humanity." Alara nodded slowly. "Maybe you believe that. But saving humanity cannot begin by taking away someone's childhood." Vale watched Nova again. The baby reached out toward the light beyond the door, curious and innocent. Something flickered briefly in Vale's eyes, maybe doubt. "Alara," Rowan whispered, unsure where this was going. Alara took one step closer to the doorway. "She is not a weapon," Alara said gently. "She is a person. If she chooses your path when she grows older, that must be her decision, not yours." Vale remained silent for a long time. Behind her, other hunters waited, ready but uncertain. Finally, Vale spoke. "You are asking us to abandon years of investment." Alara nodded. "I am asking you to respect life." The wind moved softly through the valley. Vale looked down at the ground, then back at Nova. Slowly, she stepped back. "This is not over," she said quietly. "Others will come." "Maybe," Alara replied, "but today you choose who you are." Another long silence. Then Vale turned and signaled to her team. The hover vehicles powered down. Rowan exhaled sharply, barely believing what he was seeing. One by one, the hunters retreated. When the last vehicle disappeared over the ridge, the valley returned to quiet. Rowan closed the door slowly and leaned against it, eyes wide with relief. "They left," he said softly. Alara smiled faintly, holding Nova close. "They chose to walk away." Outside, the sky stretched wide and open again. Later that evening, they returned to the ranch. The home felt warmer than before, filled with new life and new purpose. Rowan stood on the porch watching the sunset while Alara sat nearby with Nova in her arms. "She feels like family now," Rowan said quietly. Alara looked at him. "Family is not always blood. Sometimes it's the people who stay." Rowan nodded slowly. Nova laughed suddenly, a small, bright sound that filled the air. Both of them smiled. The ranch no longer felt lonely. It felt alive, a place where broken paths had crossed and created something stronger. Under the wide alien sky, a new family began to grow, built from courage, kindness, and the choice to protect what truly mattered.